everyone. How are y'all? The camera's working and we are relatively on time. It's 5:33, so cheers to that. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm drinking water. So hopefully y'all are drinking some wine. And hopefully the live stream is working. Okay, YouTube sent me the notification. It's finicky. All the tech has been very finicky this week. But we are going to talk about the Parkers and about Monique suing CBS. Wish CBS. I always think of CVS first, which we talked about back in April. So an update to that, because she did post on her Instagram a little bit of an update to that lawsuit. And then I figured we would take the time to talk about all of, or some of at least, the various strikes that are going on. So, hey, SAG-AFTRA Talks. So excited that we're going to be able to have this conversation. And I appreciate y'all that are in the Patreon as well. Hey, Julian. Hey, Jamie. So let's get into it. All right. So quick shout out to the patrons. I appreciate y'all. We've had a bunch of Patreon live streams this week. So extra shout out to Courtney, Judy, Juanita, and David. All of your support means a lot and keeps the lights on. So if you're curious about what's going on Patreon, or you just want to see, in case you're on Patreon and you didn't see it, for the Sauvignon Blanc tier on Sunday, we had a community chat with call-ins about Black tax and the burden of being the responsible person in the family. And you know what? So that way we can have more, I would say, less blood pressure raising conversations. So we had that conversation. And then yesterday, yes, you're seeing it correctly, we did a little bit of fashion and fascism. Because to talk about fascism, you need a little levity. So I did a little bit of New York Fashion Week content in there. And we were talking about the Heritage Project 2025, which is alarming. So we did that. And then today, if you're on Instagram, all of the Instagram live streams get saved for all of the Patreon tiers. We talked about the new TikTok trend, which is apparently the white men of America think about the Roman Empire on a daily, if not weekly basis. And I need the sociologist and the psychologist to chime in, because that was very interesting to me, why there are 880 million views of that, and of a bit of like a historical revisionist history as well, which is really interesting. So that is what is over on the Patreon if you're curious. And shout out to all the patrons. I appreciate y'all. And I'm pretty sure this strike prompt is not supposed to be here, and this is in the wrong order. So hold on, let's see. Okay, we are going to talk about the strikes though. The writer's strike is currently going on. They are in month 5, which, spoiler alert, unfortunately, the fall is upon us. We're probably not going to get any fall shows. Shows take a long time to write, film, produce, get out into distribution, etc. Yeah. And that is all of the studio's fault. But we'll get back to that in a second. First, we are going to talk about a one Nikki Parker, aka Monique, which, let me pull up her Instagram. So we have that, because I realized I closed it out. So we have what she was saying, I believe, yesterday. Okay. Okay, so now I have all of that out. And the simple solution would be for CBS and Paramount and the other production companies to give Monique and Countess Vaughn their coins, as well as the rest of the cast of the Parkers. So the Parkers is this year, I believe, the 24th anniversary of the show. The show was made, which will let her speak about it, for, a modest $70 million over 5 seasons. And it raked in much, many of hundreds of $millions. And Monique has stated and held for many years, like, hey, I didn't receive my proper royalties from that. So let's hear what she had to say herself, as well as her husband, who I believe might be her manager, which is maybe why he chimed in. And we'll get into it. All right.
And we're coming to y'all today to let you know we're standing with all the unions that are striking right now. And we have a story that we must share of our own with the community. Countess Vaughn and I did a show called The Parkers. The Parkers has now been on air for 24 years. And they're trying to convince us through our ownership of the show that we made absolutely no money.
And it's baffling, being that when you have a conversation with the executive producers, and they allude to the fact that the show in its entirety, 5 years, was made for under $70 million. It went out of production in 2004, but by 2009, we see profit participation statements that show the program made over $700 million, but yet was in a close to $1 billion, if not $1 billion deficit.
So what we're asking you, CBS, is can you please treat these two Black women fairly? When our brother Dave Chappelle, who ironically had a deal with CBS, said he signed the deal out of desperation and it was a bad deal, they were able to go back and do the right thing. And they made that deal fair and they paid Dave Chappelle what he rightfully deserved. What we're asking you, CBS, don't pay us any more, but don't pay us any less.
And the reason why we're having this conversation out loud for the community to hear is this. We see the numbers and they still don't want to pay. What will happen to you when you don't even know the numbers exist?
So we're asking you, and when we say community, we mean community as in the ones that's fighting for equality. Will you stand with us? CBS, will you treat us fairly? We love y'all for real, my babies. Hey, my sweet babies, I'm Monique.
And I'm Sydney.
So this is what she posted. What day was this? 1 day ago. Okay. I was right. Some days the days blend together. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. So the reason why she's bringing this up is because she sued CBS, Paramount. The list is long, child. Who do we have? Big Ticket Productions, Inc., Paramount Pictures, CBS, subsidiary of CBS Entertainment Group, and Viacom, as well as a few other production companies, stating that neither she nor many of the actresses and actors that were a part of the Parker's franchise have been paid. Now, one thing to know about this is all about the money, particularly the fact, and it ties into why they mentioned the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and they're standing in solidarity with all the other strikes, is because a large part of why the actors and the writers are both striking is neither of them are being paid fair by the streamers for their royalties. Monique is contesting that in the past 24 years, neither Netflix, when they posted, when was this? It was during the pandemic, or before Joseph said there's no more pandemic, just put that clearly. 2 years ago, I think, when Netflix announced that they had Girlfriends, half and half. Do they have half and half on there? I don't know if that's the truth. They definitely put Girlfriends. They put Girlfriends, The Parkers, as well as a lot of other beloved Black sitcoms on Netflix. Monique, in the lawsuit, arguing, hey, I didn't get the streaming that I deserved, the royalties that I deserve from the streamers, and I haven't gotten it in general, and y'all have been playing this on repeat for 24 years, and I deserve my money. Oh, half and half is on there? Okay. You know, I might rewatch half and half. I've been rewatching a lot of them. Rewatching Girlfriends is always an interesting endeavor. So there were only four causes of action in the complaint, which were breach of written contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, aka you promise you're not going to screw me over, intentional interference with contract, and accounting. The accounting was really the important part and remains to be the important part for the causes of action. And we covered this back in April. The reason why we're in September and Monique is bringing this up again is largely, so this is our original time that we covered, is because from April to September, CBS, Paramount, none of the defendants, they still have not answered the complaint. They're just like, oh, girl, you know, we're just going to keep extending this. We're going to keep extending this. Like, answer you? Like, why? Why should we do that? Which is wild. That's very wild and rude behavior, to which at one point, having gone through the court documents, Monique's team, in an effort to get them to come to the table, it seems like they are trying to push for a settlement, which would require CBS as well as Paramount to be like, okay, hey, we've done the accounting, this is how much money we owe you. So let's take a trip down memory lane, and I am just going to use what I said last time, and we'll save some time. Hold on. I was having some issues with the slides. Let me open. I'm going to open them here because I have to set like what time. The time is an auto set here. Okay, so 24:49. and then we'll play this. Semi-annual statement. I'll start at like 45. Girlfriends, etc. And so this is the boom of that. So Viacom additionally owned UPN and CBS, not CVS, the drugstore. Between approximately 1999 and 2000, BTP, so this is a production company, entered into written agreements with M&M. So M&M is Monique's loan out. So pursuant to the M&M agreements, plaintiff is entitled not the auto to caption spelling out Eminem the rapper to 100% of the AGR of the series. The calculation of this amount is subject to numerous comments, contractual limitations to preserve the integrity of plaintiff's contingent compensation rights. So the interesting thing about this lawsuit, there is no demand for the actual money, because one of the demands is you need to do the accounting, because I'm not going to tell you owe me $5 million when in reality you owe me 15. So, and then let me look up really quick in this what the definition for AGR is, because I forgot to write it down, what they have that defined as in this lawsuit. 1 second. Okay. So the AGR here is just the series adjusted gross receipts. So how much they received after everything, with certain adjustments. And again, this is a lot of math, which shout out to the accountant, because math is not my ministry. Also pursuant to the M&M agreement, BTP is required to provide plaintiff, and this is the important part that they did not do, with a written semi-annual statement in reasonable detail that shows the computation of the series net profits, if any, and requiring that any portion payable to plaintiff is remitted. And that's the big thing of, well, everyone knows my series is being syndicated on Netflix because Netflix made such fanfare about it. So where is my money? So all of that money that she's owed out of the $700 million, it's math, which we're not about to do because math is not my ministry. But money generally is. But the way that Monique is specifically being bamboozled, and how a lot of artists, either the writers or anybody with a production credit that's owed money, so the writers, sometimes the actresses themselves, etc., is even though the Parkers made $700 million, according to Monique and her husband/manager, what CBS came back and told them was, yeah, but we are $1 billion in deficit. How are you $1 billion in a deficit of something they also stated cost only $70 million to make? Who runs the accounting department? CBS. That's the problem. They're doing, there's a saying, and I said it before, in entertainment, where they say the most creative team in entertainment is the accounting team, is the accounting department. They're doing interesting maths, according to the UK girls. The math is not mathing, which is very odd, which is why they're using that as a smokescreen to say, like, well, Monique, I know this was a hit show and everyone loves it and people say they stream it every day, but we didn't really make any money, even though we told you we made $700 million. So really, what do we owe you? Which is why she's now going and telling the public, like, hey, can somebody help me? Because these people are trying to take me for a fool, to take me for idiot, is it essentially what they're doing. It's like, right. So this is what's gone on in the case since, I erased myself. This is what's gone on in the case since we talked about it last April. So as you can see, they asked for a few continuances. It just kind of kept going on. So you have not presiding non-appearance case review. So nothing stellar or anything of that nature. But what happened in April, the Hicks Media is Monique's media company. They filed to say, like, hey, fine, we will give the defendants, so CBS, Paramount, etc., we'll give them an extension, but that's only because we are under the impression that they are going to be fair and honest and try work with us towards a settlement agreement. So from let me tell you exactly, because I forgot to put the cover page in here. So from the stipulation to further extend deadline to respond to the complaint order, that's what this is called, which I meant to put the cover page. Without the cover page, it's like, wait, what is this document called? That's what this document is. This document is also from, what date is on here? Current response date, June 8th, 2023. Proposed response date is September 6th, 2023, and September 6th passed. So, whereas to facilitate exploration of resolution prior to engaging in any litigation activity, the parties jointly submitted a stipulation to the court to extend the response deadline, so the response deadline for CBS, to all three defendants to September 6, 2023, which that passed. Whereas the parties have been exploring settlement, but the progress of those discussions have been affected both by the unavailability of lead counsel for plaintiff because of a trial and by scheduling considerations with a mediator all parties agreed would be desirable because of her familiarity with the issues in this dispute. AKA Monique's team most likely wants a mediator that's actually going to be fair and not just rule for the studios, because that won't do her any good towards getting her money. So, whereas plaintiff and defendants have continued to express a mutual intention in good faith to focus on their efforts and try to reach a resolution prior to engaging any litigation activity, litigation is expensive. Also, litigation will show all of CBS's business that they have allegedly been defrauding her for 24 years. Whereas to facilitate the exploration of resolution prior to engaging in any litigation activity, including the possibility of follow-up discussions and documentation of settlement following September 13th, 2023 mediation, plaintiff has agreed to extend an additional 60 days to the response deadline for all three defendants to November 6, 2023. So now they are on a timeline. And essentially what has happened in this case, like if we're reading in between the lines, because CBS kept refusing to even answer the complaint, answering the complaint is the easiest thing to do. It's very simple. We've looked at a few answers before and we've looked at lawsuits. Most corporations, simply for the answers, the way complaints are written, it's paragraph 1. Stephanie alleges that so-and-so is a waste man. Paragraph 2, Stephanie alleges that in so-and-so being a waste man, President Joe Biden, he did not forgive the student loans as he had promised Stephanie and co. Paragraph 3, blah, 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 etc. The response from a one Joseph Robinette Biden would be, paragraph 1, denied. Paragraph 2, deny in entirety. Deny. Usually they just come in and they just deny everything and say, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Usually they don't actually answer unless they're countersuing with actual like, hey, I deny this in part because yes, I told you I would forgive the student loans, but yes, as you said, I am a waste man. So, you know, that part is partially true, etc., etc., etc. I have a bone to pick with Joseph. I really do. And as the student loan series continues and has continued for 3 years, after paying off $164,000 in 3 years so far, here we go. I knew it was going to do this. Me and this darn, the card is not full. It's been doing, you know what? No, it's not. I'm going to have to switch to the camera on here. It's been doing this all week and I just have to get a new camera. I just have to get over it and do it. It's so much money. Okay, hold on. Let me switch to this. Y'all are going to be really close to my face and it's not going to look as nice, unfortunately, because it's going to be the camera that's in the computer. So here we go. I hate this camera. Okay. This is how the Patreon live stream yesterday was like this. And I was like, why? Because now I'm a whole different color than my regular self. Can we brighter, lighter, darker? It's fine. It will do. And essentially, by them not answering and even denying the allegations, it was kind of like an FU to Monique. Them stating like, hey, you know what? Fine, we are going to try to settle it is not indicating, based off of what Monique stated yesterday, it's not indicating that they actually are going to give her the money that she's owed, which is why I think rightfully the next thing you do if you're trying to get a large settlement from a corporation is shame, is public shame. That's the only language a lot of these corporations understand. Because privately, when you try to deal with them in a nice way, they're not people. It is a corporation. They do not care. They're going about their business, and their business is to get the most profits out of everyone, unfortunately. And in a twist of art imitates life, I love that Maxine Shaw, attorney at law, chimed in, which Maxine Shaw in real life is Erica Alexander. And she commented under Monique's post and said, so what you have to do is a forensic audit, hire a specialist accountant to look into the books of the studio and look at the earnings during the production and the syndicated performance earnings over the decades. Majel Roddenberry had to do this with Gene Roddenberry's show, Star Trek. They owed them so much money, it was ridiculous. She then continued to do an audit every year because she did not believe she was getting fair accounting. Hashtag Black Power. And largely, this is what you have to do. However, forensic audits are very expensive, which is why one of the causes of action in the lawsuit from April is accounting. It was Monique's team being like, y'all need to pay for the accounting of how much money you owe me, because if she does it, then she's out of pocket for a Q coin, I would say, a very, very Q coin. So it is going, I hope this tactic works. The next deadline is November 6th. So she has until November 6th, hopefully, to get essentially CBS to feel enough pressure to be like, oh yeah, you know what? We are ripping her off. Everyone knows. Similarly, when Dave Chappelle wanted to get his coins, he did the same thing. He did a whole stand-up and was like, you see these people? These people took my money when I was young and dumb and didn't know any better. And I thought their lawyer was my lawyer, and they fixed the issue. Honestly, I wouldn't know the exact amount of what does an audit cost. I would assume if auditors are charged the same, if they charge the same amount as high-end lawyers. So a high-end partner at a law firm can run upwards of $1,000 an hour. I would assume an auditor, like an entertainment auditor, probably charges the same thing. This is just a guess. So however many hours it would take to look over 24 years of receipts is not cheap. It would probably take a long time, I would say, because you have to look at every single network that syndicated the Parkers. So it was originally, there have been so many mergers now. Viacom is involved, Paramount is involved, and so is CBS. And then it has been streamed on Netflix. It's been syndicated on BET as well. BET's parent company is Viacom. So you'd have to go through each single syndication and say, like, this is how many hours watched, how much money was made, also the percentage. I would, if I could guess, maybe at least a couple million, I would assume. I would assume it's also like a very long process. And it would be much easier for CBS, Paramount, and Viacom to do the audit because they should have those numbers. And they probably do. They just don't want to show them to her. All right. Yeah, but for like a partner that like has no life and works in big law, they make a lot of money. And they probably, depending on the specialty, they probably charge more than that, but they charge a Q coin. They charge a Q coin. All right. So an update on the strikes. Yeah, they don't pay anyone else. I used to work at Paramount CBS from Jeremy for 5 years. They don't pay anyone. Trifling. Trifling. Oh, thank you for this. So audits cost $500 to $750,000 for internal audits. And the internal audit will be cheaper than the external audit because internal are salaried employees. So that makes sense. Okay, my math wasn't that off, surprisingly. That was a guess on my end, truthfully. So, all right. So I figured we'd do a little update on the strikes. We covered the SAG-AFTRA strike and I think the WGA strike, both on Instagram. And back when the railway workers were striking, we also covered them. And then UPS, they reached an agreement before their strike. So essentially, many workers in the United States are on strikes. These are the most strikes in probably about 2 decades, which is great. The more people strike, the more everyone else is likely to get their money's worth in what they are supposed to receive for their labor. There's a lot of misconceptions, I think, because the US is not a worker-friendly country. about striking, about what striking does. If you look at all of my critiques of the French, one of them, I have zero critiques about how they largely say, I don't give a damn. They love to strike. They love to be like, I didn't want to do the labor anyway, and get what they deserve, as they should. They were striking the other day. I think it's still going on in different waves about Macron, who is their PM, him adding 2 years, I believe, to their retirement age. And the people were like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We will not be doing that, and have been striking for that on and off. In the US, there is a lot of fear because we are largely, overwhelmingly, unless you have a protected government job or you've signed on in other ways, we are at-will employees. At-will employees can get fired at any time. The at-will employee system does not give you a lot of protections as a worker. It is foolishness. So if we're looking at WGA, one of the things that they're striking about, which is similar to what SAG is striking about, is there are people on hit shows. Amanda Seales put something on her Instagram when this first came out for Insecure, which is a hit show, award-winning, groundbreaking show. She's getting residual checks, some of them less than $20. There were people from The Bear. The Bear is an award-winning hit show. Great show. If you like food, it's very fun. Also shows very messy family dynamic, which is interesting if you come from a messy family. You can feel seen. People who were writers on The Bear saying, hey, I wrote part of The Bear at the New York Public Library because there was no Wi-Fi in my house because I couldn't afford to pay Wi-Fi. That's wild. All the while, these studios are getting so much money. Someone on TikTok showed one of their residual checks. The residual check was less than $1. A stamp costs more than $1. The fact that they wasted money to mail something that costs less than the stamp. You can't cash, I mean, you probably could cash out a 30-cent check. Why would you? I would be so annoyed. I would be so irritated. And beyond irritated, a lot of these people cannot afford their livelihood. And there's a very big misconception with entertainment. And I said this before, I used to work in entertainment as a lawyer. There's a misconception that entertainment is very glamorous and everyone's getting paid well. Margot Robbie is getting paid well because Margot Robbie is Barbie. Regular people that work in the entertainment industry are not getting paid well. People that even some of our favorites that we see very often who were like, oh, of course they should be getting paid well because we've all watched the Parkers a million times. We are all very familiar with Nikki Parker and Professor Ogilvy. All of this, you have Monique being like, no, my money is funny because these people owe me money. And now it's foolishness. The CEOs of a lot of these studios are making upwards of $20 million a year. The very top 1% of actors are also making a lot of money. The majority of the actors that you see in principal roles in a lot of the shows we watch are not making a lot of money. Writers, similarly, and we talked about this when we talked about the writer's strike, writers are writing for one show. If you ever rewatch any of your old favorite shows, I rewatched How to Get Away with Murder like a month or so ago because I never watched it till the end. It got a little crazy and I was like, what the hell is going on in the show? Like everyone is dying. Like, so I just gave up on it. I was like, this is commotion. But I wanted to know, I was like, wow, did Viola ever get some peace? Did Annalise Keating ever find some peace? Those shows used to be 15, 16, 17, 18 episodes a season. Now, if you watch a show, you're lucky if you get 8 episodes. And that is not because the actors or the writers have said like, oh, well, we want to make the show shorter. It's because the studios have specifically contracted them for less and less time to make the shows shorter, to pay them less. So you have writers who are essentially forced to do way more work in a short amount of time, but not receive the same benefits because they used to work, say they worked on a show. These are arbitrary numbers because my friend who is a part of WGA did explain this to me or works with people who are part of WGA because they work in entertainment, explain this to me. And the exact numbers, I don't remember off the top of my head right now. They are in that live stream. That is on Patreon. But say, for example, back in the day, you used to work on one hit show and that would get you 16 weeks in a writer's room. Off of the 16 weeks that you got paid, you get paid the mandatory minimum, which is maybe $4,000 to $5,000 a week, something like that. And then you can balance it out over the year. If you're now going to where there's only 8 episodes and the writer's room now is only 6 weeks, from 16 weeks, you're getting paid less. And then you're banking on like, okay, my residual check will come in and I'll be all right. The residual check is now coming in at 20 cents. The residual check used to come in at $20,000. The problem is not the workers. The problem is the greedy studios. And the problem is also largely with streamers like Apple, Netflix, and Amazon. They have different contracts. They have changed the contracts with SAG-AFTRA as a prime example. The work has changed. They are now doing work for streaming. Streaming runs on a whole different monetization scheme. Particularly Netflix doesn't have, for the longest, it might start to have, doesn't have ads. It runs a completely different way. So now you have actors who are like, hey, you've essentially changed the way we make money. We need a new contract. If you are an employee, for example, and you say, like when I was a lawyer, if I got a promotion, was like, hey, Stephanie, you're going to be the AG, the Assistant General Counsel now. Okay, great. You get a new employment contract. It has a new employment contract. It says like the new parameters of your role, etc. They need a new employment contract. That is not only fair to ask for, that is the normal course of doing business with somebody. You've changed the surroundings on me, so I need a new contract. So that way we know how to deal with each other. Instead, the large studios as well as the streamers have been like, actually no. And the other thing, the large one of the sticking points that SAG is fighting for and what they're fighting about is the use of AI. So a few of the studios propose that the background actors, which background actors get paid a mandatory minimum a day, that they want to scan the background actors for a project, pay them once, and then not pay them for the rest of it. To which SAG pushed back and was like, no, like these people need their money. Also, you just can't be scanning people. What are you going to do with that information? America is not known for its good privacy laws. Truthfully. It's not. I would be nervous. I'd be like, I don't trust y'all. I don't trust y'all to have any sense with my data, particularly my biometric data, much less scam me out of my money. That is largely what they're fighting for. The writers are also fighting to know what the updates and the integration with AI is going to look like for their jobs, which is, of course, like ChatGPT can write you a story. Can it write you a compelling script at this point? Not really. Can it write something that's kind of passable? A little bit. People have tried it. Unfortunately, it can do certain things. So people want to know like, hey, I want to have protections for my job because the whole job is about the human impact, about the human touch. It's telling stories. Also, we're talking about studios that made Fast and Furious 10. Them people don't care about, no offense if you like Fast and Furious, but there was no need. There was no need for 10 of them. It was unnecessary. It was very unnecessary. We could have got a Black love period piece. We could have, and we should have. And as somebody who loves a good period piece, that's what I wanted to see. I'm just saying something new, something fresh, instead of Fast and Furious a million times. Unnecessary. Also, using AI, which AI, there's a video on that as well. Using artificial intelligence when it really is machine learning on steroids and you don't understand the parameters of what it can do. The underlying fear, particularly with the writers, is they don't know what these studios would train the data sets on. Likely, because right now ChatGPT is trained on large amounts of data from Reddit, from Twitter, from foolishness. It's trained on foolishness. The large consternation and concern is, are you going to train the machine learning, the large language model on all of I know directors' names and not writers. Are you going to train it on, for example, on Shonda Rhimes shows? Because if you watch enough Shonda Rhimes, you can see where she's going with the script, the drama, the foolery, the this, the that. You can kind of get a look and feel of it, which is stealing. And that has already come up with the company Midjourney, which Midjourney is supposed to create new generative images. Midjourney was sued and accused, as well as Lenza, and accused of not creating anything new, but just stealing from artists on the internet. Just being like, you know what? I'm just gonna borrow this. I'm gonna borrow this, and then I'm just gonna change the colors around. I've seen creations from some of these AI generative art websites where I'm like, I know exactly what anime that came from. This is not new. This is just teething. It's just teething. And those are valid concerns. It also can never be understated in all of these strikes. All of these CEOs are making exorbitant amounts of money for no reason. Ovitz, who is the CEO of Disney, said they all say like very odd things as to defend why they're allowed to make all this money and everyone else has to starve. Was very much like, well, you know, what they're asking for is unreasonable. And I'm like, people are asking to make sure that their job is in place and that you don't steal their intellectual property and that you don't make a digital clone of them. What, that doesn't seem like that much. Very strange. Yes, y'all had me watch that, which I'm terrified of scary things, so I don't watch scary things. But I did a poll because people told me to watch Jane is Awful on Netflix, which is the episode of the latest Black Mirror season. And people did verify for me it's not scary. I don't watch anything scary, but it is wildly like, you're like, oh, here we go. Here we go. So there's no jump scares in it. I would recommend if you're a scary person like me, you can definitely watch it. It's interesting in that you're just like, oh God, why? Why are we here? Why are we here? They cloned Tyrone, which is on Netflix. Also, I was like, I had some thoughts. I have some thoughts. Very interesting. Okay, let me go through some of the comments. Okay, so this is from the studio execs themselves. This is what they said out of their own mouth. Deadline is an entertainment industry trade. I think that's what it's called, like a trades newsletter. No, it's not a newsletter. Trade publication. I was like, what is a damn word? Trade publication. And so when they interviewed execs about like, hey, what about these strikes? The executives said, particularly regarding the writer's strike, the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their homes. A studio executive told Deadline. Acknowledging the cold as ice approach, several other sources reiterated the statement. One insider called it a cruel but necessary evil. Yeah. Anybody defending any of the studios or any of these megalomaniacs cosplaying as CEOs that don't actually do any labor is objectively wild. The only way to get the money that you deserve is to stand in solidarity with the people working next to you. I wish the creators that we could get a union. It's highly unlikely for many factors. One of them particularly is because being a content creator encourages individualism, truthfully. That's why my tech is a mess, because I'm like, well, I have to figure it out by myself. So how far am I going to figure it out? Let's be serious. Like, I'm going to do the legal research. I'm going to give you some earrings. When I'm not sick, there will be some wine, but figuring out the tech, like there's no infrastructure. So a lot of creators trying to get creators, particularly creators that have not been around the idea of a union, unfortunate. But I really wish we had one, because most content creators do not even have healthcare. Most content creators, 70% of content creators full-time make less than $50,000 a year. The list goes on and on. Having a union would give us bargaining power with our non-employer employer, which is YouTube, to be like, hey, YouTube, you know, you love creators. YouTube does a lot for me. I appreciate YouTube. I wish YouTube would let me buy into healthcare. I would happily pay my money to get some good Google health insurance. Happily. I would happily send them the check every month. Happily. And the only way that that would become a reality is if large enough creators and enough creators banded together to be like, hey, we have some requests. You know, we have some requests. And all of this, exactly, Kiki. Any evil is necessary to these shameless capitalists. Capitalism, the whole purpose of capitalism, which is why people should stop defending it in any form, it cannot work in any form. It is designed to extract money and labor from people, just so a few people that you will never see, that don't even that don't even know how to dress themselves, that love basic beige, can lord over you and let you live in a fiefdom with Wi-Fi. That's it. That's it. Yes, they do. I saw Blue Courts, the reality TV girlies need a union. I saw Bethany Frankel, was trying to do something helpful for the girls. And she had brought that up. So I wonder if that got anywhere, because that needs to happen. Yes, people are already losing their homes, unfortunately. I saw Billy Porter very bravely stated that he had to sell his house. I think I read this. He did an interview a month or so ago where he was like, listen, I'm not at this point, I need to downsize. And he had to sell his house because all of the projects he thought would have happened for the fall, he's like, they're clearly not happening. As a member, I think he's a member of the Writers Guild as well as SAG-AFTRA as well. So it is very, very, why is everyone calling me? It's unfortunate. It's past unfortunate, because at this point, when you see that your capitalist overlord is like, yeah, I want to push them onto the street, I want to make them beg. How do you combat that? The only way to combat that is through more solidarity and getting more people to realize, like, hey, if one person gives in and if you become a scab, like, that is just going to set everyone back. And largely, I've been seeing a lot of members of SAG-AFTRA as well as the WGA be like, hey, content creators, make sure you don't cross the picket line. So that way people understand, like, hey, crossing the picket line will getting you $1,000 is not going to pay your bills for the whole year. It will not benefit you. It doesn't actually make any sense in the long term. And I really hope, I would say particularly the influencers on TikTok, because TikTok does skew very young and TikTok is very predatory. You know what? All of my criticisms and suggestions for YouTube does pay me. I do get my check every month from the Google, and I appreciate that. And I do. TikTok don't pay them people over there. TikTok is literally giving them pennies and telling them to be grateful, which is wild. All of my TikTok friends, I'm just like, sorrows, prayers. It seems rough. It seems rough over there, which is crazy, which is very, very crazy. Thank you, THR. Yes, if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps, particularly right now while the economy is funny for everybody. It'll help me show some brands like, hey, we're all drinking wine. Well, not right now. Today's water. But we're drinking wine, so they might as well send me some wine and y'all, we can all share some wine. All right. It's rough over there. That's why I don't get audit. People keep trying. I understand from a functional standpoint of social media. I have sense that TikTok is the best algorithm in terms of exposure. I'm 32. Exposure don't pay New York City rent. Exposure don't pay light bill. I'm in a business with exposure. So I understand that functionally. Also, TikTok is rampant misinformation, in my opinion. Like, it's too much commotion for me to actually fix my mind to be like, yeah, let's do this. Let's make sense. We're on a 55-45 split, YouTube and I. YouTube, I think I'm 55. I get 55%. They get 45% of my AdSense. Do I agree with that split? No, I really don't. But that's much better than what TikTok is doing. And the consternation. And the consternation of TikTok is the other thing. No money to be stressed. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me as a former corporate girly who was paid but stressed. If I'm not gonna get any coins, I might as well be peaceful about it. Personally. Unpopular opinion, that publication, if we can call it that, needs to get the boot. Needs to go somewhere. They need to go somewhere where the sun is not shining, because that place is awful. How do they make, so my understanding, actually we could talk about this for like a second. My understanding of how people are making money on TikTok is not sustainable. TikTok is, and multiple articles have come out where TikTok does what they call heating. And essentially they have the ability, the employees of TikTok, to make something go viral. So TikTok will give you like, it's like a drug, give you a dopamine hit and be like, hey, you went viral. Do it again, just to keep trying to get you to catch it. TikTok is paying, YouTube runs on AdSense, right? So I get paid. Thank you, Miss Opinionated. Appreciate you adding to my Google check. Which the Google check is going towards these goddamn student loans, and the student loan interest started September 1st. Sorry to be Debbie Downer, and remind y'all, go log into your student loans, please, for your own sake. So you can see and start getting familiar, because the payment is going to be due in October. But essentially, the way easiest to understand TikTok, if you understand YouTube, the way YouTube pays people out directly, I get paid per 1,000 views. It's called a CPM, cost per milli. That's how much the advertisers are paying YouTube to put an ad on my video. I get paid the RPM, the rate per milli. That's my 55%. YouTube keeps the 45%. So as a lawyer, my CPM, RPM is generally a bit higher than most people. And it also depends on like the topics you talk about. The people that make the most are the finance channels. So the finance channels can bring in anywhere from like $20 to $30, sometimes $40, depending on the time of the year. I run about $12 to $15 on average. Some videos a lot higher per 1,000 views. So with that, that's what I get. Now, we're talking about dollars. The RPM on TikTok is in cents, is in literal pennies. So yes, you can get, y'all know math's not my ministry, so I'm not going to do the math. I'm just going to do the maths behind the math. You'd have to plug in the numbers. Say you got 100,000 views on TikTok. 100,000, you're going to get paid per 1,000. 100,000 divided by 1,000 is 1,000, right? I think so. Hold on. Or is it 10,000? See, here we go with the freaking math. 100,000 divided by 1,000 is 100. See, math is not my ministry at all. It's 100. So on YouTube, say I got 100,000 views. That's so I would say on a video, I'm $15 per 1,000. So 15 times 100 would give me, the fact that y'all have me doing math, this shows that I really care. $1,500. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. I was like, let me see. Yeah, that makes sense. $1,500. So 100,000 views on my channel will get me $1,500. On TikTok, they're not paying in dollars. They're paying in cents. Let's say my RPM on TikTok is 30 cents. Let's be nice. That same 100,000 views is getting me 30 bucks. 30 bucks? What? You're going to buy lunch? What are you going to do with 30 bucks? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And it's also views, regardless of what platform you're on, are inconsistent. You can be very consistent, but the views go up and down. Sometimes in your control, sometimes not in your control. There's a lot of factors there. The more I'm on YouTube, the more part of it has to do with like knowing what y'all want to talk about. Like, hey, do y'all want to talk about this? Like, okay, this should hopefully do okay. And then also just timing. There are some videos where I've spent so much time on them and they are very topical. And I know the research was there. I knew it was everything. And the video just sometimes doesn't do well. That has nothing to do with you. Sometimes the thumbnail analysis, the people that love to analyze the thumbnails, sometimes the thumbnail is not it. And if the thumbnail is not it, then no one clicked on it to see your beautiful 45 deep dive into earrings. And you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles. It's unfortunate. There's so many factors into it, which is why on TikTok, particularly, because the original question, was how do people make money on TikTok? That's why people are doing brand sponsorships. You see people trying to be Shaq. And they're like, listen, anything could sponsor me. We're out here. This is from Egypt when I went like many years ago. They're just out here. I'm just picking up the stuff on the table. They'll sell anything because they're like, listen, ask me my rent. Or you see people selling their own products, which TikTok Shop is out now. And from my understanding, it has lots of issues of people trying to sell just foolishness. Or people rightfully being like, no, I want to sell my merch. And then TikTok Shop like being kind of glitchy. It's stressful. Trust, if you can, say something nice to your favorite content creator, because I'm sure they're stressed, particularly as the economy ebbs and flows. The creator economy is always commotion, and it's commotion on steroids currently. It's commotion on steroids. So if your fave looks a little down, that's probably why. It's a mess. YouTube determines the CPM. and you have no say in it. There's no conversation with YouTube. It just pops up in your YouTube studio, and TikTok the same way. And they tell you that determination is based off of the type of content you did, and then the watch time, like how long somebody watched through, and a bunch of factors that only they can control. So as you can see, it's a very one-sided relationship. It's a very one-sided relationship. So you might see people where you're like, oh, wow, they're getting consistently great views. They're always 100,000 views on a video. If they only make one video every other month, that's not enough money to live on, particularly when the average CPM is sitting around $7. It's sitting a bit lower. So that means the RPM is 55% of that. So you're getting like $3. So the math is not giving rent money, unfortunately. So yes. All right. So on that point, listen, I feel you. I'm not judging, but a 9 to 5 is feeling real stable right now. It is. I've been because it's funny to me to be personally. I think as I'm a little bit older, so and also very good at money management. So I'm like, I got the money to weather it, so it should be all right. But for now, we'll see. One of the things I was thinking about, like, should I take my behind back to corporate? I hated corporate. I've never been quiet about that. I hated corporate. Being a corporate lawyer was the bane of my existence. I did not enjoy it. However, 9 to 5 is also not stable because they will fire you. They will be like, anyways, without severance, some of these places. I've been very lucky. A girl gets a severance check. She do. But it'd be foolishness. It's foolishness abounds. And the reason why foolishness abounds, I'm so mad at myself. I wish I had this clip. Let me see if I can find it and we'll end at this. Foolishness abounds because in capitalism, again, the people with the capital, the 1% of the 1% that actually own the things, their whole goal is to just extract labor out of everyone else so they can hoard shit. That's their only goal, is to hoard and to pretend trickle-down economics works, which it does not. That's been proven a million times. And to be like, hey, I don't give a damn. I don't care about your material reality because I'm over here living lavish. And let me see if I can quickly find the prime example of this, which is this. I believe he's Australian CEO literally said, here we go. Here we go. I'm gonna end on this because sometimes people really think like, you know what? You cannot fix capitalism. It cannot be fixed. It is not meant to be fixed. It is foolishness. The only way we can figure out how to make some sense out of all of this together is literally to figure out everything together in a way that is equitable, which would require lots and lots of work because we live in a capitalist, racist, white supremacist patriarchy. So let me play this wild clip from this wild CEO, and then we'll end on this. Okay, let's make sure y'all can hear the foolishness out this man's mouth.
We've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years. And we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance. I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has
he did. Okay. This man is is a menace. You have to laugh. You have to laugh that he really was so bold and emboldened to just say it out loud. To just be like, yeah, you know what? Let them people just starve over there. That's wild. It's wild that he really said that out loud. And child, this person, go do labor. Go do labor and get out of my freaking live stream with your foolishness. It's very silly that people really think that only hard work will get you what you want in this life in a capitalist system. It's really silly behavior. The hardest working people I know, myself included, at multiple points in my life, I've had 3 jobs. And what do I still have? $160,000 of student loans. Only somebody who works very hard and is very lucky. I don't have any, I am happily child-free since 93 at this point in my life, and was very frugal, is able to pay off $164,000 in 3 years. Most people could never, truthfully. And even though I've paid off $164,000 of my student loans, I still owe $160,000. That is because the capitalist system is designed to keep you in poverty, A, if it can, and to just extract money out of you. That's $75,000 of interest. What did Fedloan or Sally Mae do? What services do they give me that they deserve $75,000 of money they didn't earn? I would like to know. What did the CEO of Sally Mae do to deserve $75,000 of my dollars that they didn't work a day in their life for? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. And for that man to go over there and just be like, people need to feel it more. Those are the same type of people that back in the day, the villagers would come to their little raggedy castle that they built for them and be like, pitchfork, pitchfork, we're done. We're tired of this. And anybody that doesn't understand the idea that you can work so hard in this country and still be flat broke and land on your ass is deluding themselves. Is deluding themselves, and unfortunately is sadly probably part of the 70% of Americans that do not even have $1,000 in their bank account for an emergency. Is that a fault of 70% of Americans? No, that is the fault of a government that requires taxpayer money and doesn't use that taxpayer money for social welfare and for social good. Because I'm paying my taxes. I haven't missed any of my taxes. I'm paying my taxes, but they've defunded the library. The subway system is now $2.90 one way. Why? $2.90? $2.90 one way? The subway hasn't gotten better. It's not better service, Eric Adams. All Mayor Adams does is pontificate about how much he loves the police because he's a former police officer, arms the police, and lets them go on walking tours throughout New York City. Because they're not doing no labor. No labor is really being done on their end. So I would like to know. It's very much giving, hey, you the poors, you're not working hard enough. Those bootstraps, you need to pick them up more. Most people don't even have no shoes. So on that note, I really am for the team Pitchfork. And for the unions, and by Pitchfork, I mean the unions. I mean the unions and people working together in solidarity to be like, this is nonsense. I've given my years, I've given my time, I've done my things, and I've done the labor. And to think that any little CEO, and most of them are small, CEO is deserving of $30 million. That's wild. That's wild. That's the only people who believe Jeff Bezos is a billionaire because Jeff Bezos works harder than other people are people who live in delusion and think that they too can become Jeff Bezos. No, Jeff Bezos never worked harder than my dad, who's a truck driver for 30 years and works 60 and 70 hours a week. Never. Jeff Bezos never worked harder than that man a day in his life. And yet they are living two very different lives like most people. So let's go through some comments and then we are gonna let y'all go eat dinner. Hey Zeus, the word you're looking for is precarity, keeping working people in the financial uncertainty so they never stand up to capitalism. Exactly. It's forced poverty. Most poverty in this country specifically is forced poverty. Most poverty in formerly colonized countries is because the US and or other colonizing powers have destabilized their country. All of it is very forced, unfortunately. Work for nothing and be happy. Just smile and wave. Just smile and wave. Child foolishness. All right. Thank you, Kwana. Stephanie, I'm trying to pay off $30,000 in debt, and the fact that you paid off $100,000 is such gold. That's why I don't listen to the people that are like, you just need to work harder. Like, child, 99% of people. One thing about a positive stereotype about Jamaicans love labor too much. It is bred into us. It is awful, particularly when you come to this country. The only way to rectify giving up your good mango tree and your nice cool breeze for this version of catastrophic mess is labor. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to work myself out of it. Can't nobody work more hours than me? And after I've done it and I've done all the assimilation and done all the things I was supposed to do in corporate and I didn't get what was promised, it was made very apparent to me at a much younger age in my 20s, like, oh, you can't outwork any of this. And then add on systemic racism. It's foolishness, child. It's foolishness. But anyways, and we could end on this quadratic equation. Jeff Bezos don't work harder than anybody working at McDonald's. And thank you. And I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all always for tuning in. And we've been doing our weekly live streams. This is the third one. We did one last week. It just is on Patreon. So whenever they're not anything that has to do with current events, they'll just end up on Patreon for all the tiers, which I do need to clip that part to keep with salary transparency. I went over how much I made in this past year as a full-time content creator. So I do need to clip part of it and post that. So I'm going to do that this week. And yeah, so I will catch y'all next week. I am currently batch filming a new series. So I'm super excited. So our edited videos will come back probably like late October. But we will, of course, the student loan videos every month on the month. So that one, I'll probably do it next week, the student loan video about what's going on. What's going on with student loans and the SAVE plan. Because the SAVE plan it can be positive for certain people, but you really have to do the math. It's not what they're selling it to be. So I really want us to continue to do the math, even though I hate math, because I don't want y'all to get screwed with the interest. The interest is the problem in the long run. And as somebody who has 7.21% interest on one of my loans, I will be refinancing them. So we're going to go through all of that. So I appreciate y'all a lot. And thank you for watching. And I will catch y'all next week. Bye.